Hey guys, welcome. Is my TV on? Hang on a minute, my TV's not on. Wait a minute, let me just switch my inputs here. Sorry.
No
Uh,
worries, all good.
Oops. Make sure it's. There we go. Now I can hear you.
Awesome. Oh,
Oops, and Toonami is playing. Sorry about that.
no worries.
Hey, so how are you?
Yep.
How are you, Bryce? I've never met you actually.
Yeah, I don't believe we've met in person, but we've talked a little bit over Instagram and stuff like that, I
Mhm.
believe.
Did
Yeah,
you
it's nice to
did you
meet
want
you.
to just Yeah, nice to meet you. My name is Aaron. I
Aaron,
am one
yes.
of the founders of DNA, and as you can tell, I'm a huge DanMachi fan,
Oh yeah.
and also Bel Cornell and Hestia. Like I'm a giant fan of the show.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, so when we first talked to you on kind of on Instagram, I wanted to get you both, like you and some of the cast from the show on, but everyone's schedule is so busy, and I couldn't. It was
Yeah.
hard to,
It's
um,
hard to schedule a bunch of actors at the same time, to be honest. But I mean, yeah, I was glad that we were able to work out a time for this at least.
Cool. How do
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to do you want to just start by doing some introductions? How did you want to start? I mean, it's up to you. You're the guest, so
Sure. Yeah. I guess I can. We can start with some introductions. Did you want me to introduce myself, or did you have like
um,
a whole thing that you
actually,
usually
go
do?
ahead, dude. No. Go ahead. I just had some some simple questions, just chat with, just basic chat. Ask you about some shows, stuff like that. But go ahead, introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Bryson Baugus. I'm a voice actor based out of Texas. I started in Houston, but I live in Dallas now. Some of my roles include Belle from DanMachi, obviously. Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Takumi from Food Wars, Falco from Attack on Titan, Shoyo Hinata from Haikyuu, Yuga Odo from Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, Nagi from Blue Lock, and a bunch of other stuff.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Um, and for anyone out there who is watching or who will see this on YouTube,
Mhm.
my name is A. Goldman or Aaron. I am one of the founders of DNA Anime Blog. We do anime, we do interviews with voice actors, we do a lot of write-ups on different shows, we do figure reviews, we do all kinds of stuff. And usually I have my other friend Dante with me, who actually helped me start the business, but he's not able to be here today.
Ah, dang.
So yeah,
Hello.
yeah, so that's kind of the show today. If you want, Bryce, I have a whole soundboard in here, so if you want to make a joke or something, yeah, we can, we can, you
I'll
know,
keep that in mind.
yeah. So anyway,
Awesome.
I think I'm gonna start off by asking you, how did you first start? Like, what was your first, how did you first like kind of get into voice acting? What made you kind of first start out? What made you get into it?
Yeah, so I actually kind of started off as a fan of anime and video games when I was a kid, and I think I was about 14 when I realized that voice acting was something like a job. And so I was as young as 14, I was like, I want to do that. So I would look for resources online, and there was a website that I would go to called Voice Acting Alliance, which isn't around anymore. But there was also a forum which has now become a Discord server, which is called Voice Acting Club, which is still around. And what I would do is all throughout high school and early college, I would do just like amateur projects through those websites and everything, while also doing theater throughout high school and college. And what eventually got me into doing it professionally was I would go to this mass theater audition that was based out of Houston called the Alliance Auditions. And essentially it's like it's you auditioning for all of the local theaters in the Houston area. And the year that I went in like 2015, a couple of the directors from Sentai were there.
Ooh,
And
cool.
yeah. And I lucked out because they haven't been there since, and they hadn't been there before, so I just happened to catch the right year. But one of the directors, the late Chris Ayers, noticed me because he recognized me as a fan going to conventions, and I would meet him at cons before, and it was something that he knew I was interested in doing, but he had never seen me like perform before. So I've always assumed that just based off of that audition that he saw, he was like, oh, I guess this kid can actually act, so let's give him a chance. And so he called me in for my very first like extra voices session, which was on a
Did
show
you
he was working on at the time called Dramatical Murder. And it
Cool.
just kind
Did
of
you
snowballed
see?
from there. Yeah.
did you see anybody else like so? Because you mentioned Sentai, you must have had like this kind of leads me into my next question. Did you see anyone that you looked up to like? So you know how some voice actors you ask them like, hey, who was like your idol or who'd you look up to, right? You didn't see like Steve Bloom or Kali Band or like anybody else. You didn't see any like big heroes, did you? Like anyone that you watched as a fan or you might have watched right on TV back in the day?
I mean, well, it was mainly for theater, and most of the people there were live theater actors. And there's a good amount of Houston voice actors who do theater as well. But I guess I at least when it comes to the other actors there, I didn't recognize anyone in particular because aside from the directors of the theaters there and everything, usually you'd go in, you'd do your 2-minute audition, and then you'd leave. So I didn't particularly notice any actors that I would have recognized from voiceover or anything like that. But I definitely recognized him. I think he and the other director was like switching out or something, but I'd caught them like after getting back from lunch break or something, and so it was good to chat with them for a little bit before going in and doing the thing. It made me a lot less nervous. So
Cool. So then I guess did you have any real like heroes or like because you said you started out as a fan, right? So
yeah.
was there anyone that you looked up to at all? Like any other actors or anybody else who you saw before you like started getting into before doing that?
Oh yeah. Okay. I thought you meant like if I saw anybody at that audition in particular. I was like, oh, I didn't.
Yeah, that kind of that too. I mean, 'cause, you know, some people like you ask some people like, oh, like I like got a chance to see so and so at a meeting, or like you'll talk to some actors like, oh, I got a chance to work with like this real big voice actor I was a fan of, right?
Oh,
when
okay.
I was younger, and so they kind of look up to him. So
Yeah.
like that kind of led me into that. Like, did you have any like people who you looked up to, or did you see anybody?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was a fan, I was always a big fan of a lot of the people that you mentioned already. Like, I really liked Steve Bloom's work. I liked Kyle Hebert. I was actually a big fan of Lucy's. Interestingly enough. So I grew up watching the OG Full Metal Alchemist, and I really liked in that version of the show. They split off a lot from the manga, so people rightfully give a little bit of like critique against it, but it was still a really great show. And one of the characters, huh? Oh, you grew up
with that OG. Yeah, I was an
yeah. One of the one of the anime only characters from that series was their version of Wrath, and Lucy plays that version of Wrath, and she just does such a great job as him. And that series had like a finale movie that had like this amazing fight scene that she played in, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is acting. Like it's really great. So it's been really cool to be able to work with people that like I was a big fan of when I was a huge fan of anime, and watching these people on the shows. Now I get to work with a lot of them, so it's really cool.
Do you get to watch so have you heard yourself back? Like I know some actors don't like to, right? Have you actually like watched yourself back, or have you seen? Because there are some people don't get a chance to. Some actors don't, like they're so busy working, they don't get a chance to actually go back and like watch the. Have you ever heard yourself back, or have you ever like?
Yeah. I've especially when I started out, because like I said, I was a fan. So like once I started getting into this stuff, I was like, oh gosh, I want to see how I sound, see if I like sound as good as like all the people around me. And I would probably go back if I were to listen to some of my early stuff. I'd probably be like, yeah, I could do that better now. But I mean, I was very happy with it at the time, and what was I gonna say? I generally don't have the time to watch like every little thing that I do nowadays, like you mentioned, but I do try and at least check out shows that like I play like a decently major part in. Maybe not like every episode of every lead I've ever played. Like I know Saint Seiya, I haven't seen all of that yet because that was like 100-something episodes, but like every now and then I'll try and check out
DanMachi?
Well, yeah, I've seen all of DanMachi, of course, already. That was my very first lead, so I was like, yes, I'm watching all of this. I think I watched the first season of DanMachi like 4 or 5 times, like all the way through, because I watched it when it first came out. I watched it by myself. Then I watched it with my girlfriend at the time, my wife now. I showed it to my brothers. I showed it to I was like showing it to some friends. So I was like, everybody, look, that's me. I was the guy on the show. And I've since chilled out a bit. But like, it's just one of those things that like you start off and you're brand new and it's all really exciting. So you want to check out everything that you've worked on. So, but it definitely becomes a lot more to keep up with as you start doing a lot more work.
I don't know if you can tell. Let's see here. Let's get Alexa, turn on studio light.
Okay.
I don't know if you can tell from the background, but Hestia's back here. There's a giant pillow here.
Oh, I just noticed the pillow. I saw Hestia. It's a little bit blurry from my perspective, but I could see the Hestia plush, and then I just saw the pillow too.
Yeah, we'll bring this up.
Oh, I didn't even see that pillow. I saw the other pillow. Nice.
You got two sides there, right?
Uh-oh.
And everyone's favorite, right? The limited.
Oh, okay, yeah, I saw that pillow, and then I saw the plush. Yeah. I think.
Here. So
oh,
I'm
of course.
definitely a fan.
Pillowy mounds. Nice. Oh my gosh, I like that Rimuru. I like that Rimuru too.
Oh yeah, that's from one of the there's so many different sites, right? And I'm accused of this, right? I get hooked on. You see some anime merch on Instagram, and you're like, oh, that's like a great video. And since I do reviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
This whole display, I wish you could see this whole display case over on this side with all of the figures. I have a bookshelf here. I got quite a few seasons of DanMachi, but
oh, nice.
But yeah, I mean, so yeah, I know exactly what you're, you know.
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from. But yeah, no, so that's cool. So that's awesome. That's cool. I normally most actors, like I've talked to Steve Bloom, I've talked to a bunch of other ones. Kyle, I've talked on Instagram. But most people don't get a chance to really, like, I guess they're in their lead role, they might watch some, right?
Yeah.
But not much. And just like you, I was also a fan of Lucy Christian back in the day. I grew up watching her on like Negima and like a bunch of other series.
Yeah.
Played in.
I saw Negima as well. I never watched all the way through Negima, the reboot one. I saw the original one that like also kind of split away from the manga too. Yeah. That
was when they had like the chibi and like they had more of the chibi, like little chibi characters in it. But also had like the cooler artwork, I think. Am I right? Or that was the reboot one done by Shaft, I believe. And that one also kind of went in its own way. I don't remember. I didn't read as much manga. I watched more anime than I did read manga, but the one that you're thinking of with the really cool art style was the newer one. Which that's the one I hadn't seen all the way through, but I saw little bits and pieces of it. Yeah, because I watched both of them too, and I remember them both being good, but I remember the one of them never finished. The one series never really, because it went into Yuki Holder, and I'm like, I didn't prefer Yuki Holder.
Oh, I got you. Hey, I'm in Yuki Holder.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, that's what you are. No, so look, it's not you, right?
I'm just messing.
I think you're an awesome guy, and I'm a big fan of yours. Right, but I'm a fan of a lot of voice actors, right?
Nah, I get that. With UQ Holder, I didn't even think about that because I think I went in to record and I think the director had offhandedly mentioned, because the characters that I just play a couple of small characters. They don't interact with any of the old Negima characters. So like he, I think offhandedly mentioned that it's related to Negima at the end, and I was like, wait, really? Because that was another one that I watched when I was like 14 or so, and I just thought it was really cool to be a part of that world now. Somehow.
The only thing that got me about that one, which is funny, is like the fact that the main protagonist can't die, and I'm like, that, for me personally, that ruined like the whole staying with the show, because I lost interest after that.
I do kind of understand that sort of perspective, because if your main character can't die, then there's not really. You can only go so far with stakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
I get that.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
So,
I had a hiccup.
That's all right. All right. I have all kinds of you wouldn't believe. So I have all kinds of noises in here.
Oh gosh. Oh man.
We can easily.
Sorry about that. I just had breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. We can easily cover that up. So like, say you burp on it, we can cover it up with a. Or anything really. Actually, when you were talking about your time doing voice acting, or getting into voice acting, I almost was gonna say during your time when you were doing all those auditions and like you getting into that, I was gonna say it must have been like this. For you.
Oh, too easy.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I was very nervous, honestly, but I think I did all right, and it seems to have worked out for me all these years later. So I appreciate it.
No problem. Another question for you? Do you have any funny moments or like anything that's happened to you while recording? Any like thing that you can anything you can say that you can talk about when recording or like any funny times?
There was one time I made the mistake of going into I went well, while I was first recording, I was still going to college when I first started out. So I had to do a lot of driving, and so it was hard to find time to eat before sessions sometimes. And so there was one time I was going in for to record Food Wars in particular, and I hadn't eaten anything at all yet that day, and I had like a 4-hour session, so I just had to suffer through like 4 hours of looking at this beautifully animated food while I was just like starving, and we'd have to like take a take again or something like that every now and then because my stomach will chime in and be like, I want to be a voice actor too.
Oh wow.
But I can't think of anything.
You didn't get that, like, you know how when you're watching an anime or like say you're doing a part or like you're hungry and you get that like that little noise, right, that your stomach makes, like gurgling noise,
like the growling,
like high pitched noise. You didn't like get that, did you?
No, that's what I was getting at. It's just kind of like in the middle of a take, you'll hear my stomach and it's just like, oh, well, we gotta take that one again.
Well, at least they don't have to worry about adding sound effects, right? Because your stomach.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Like I said, first voice acting tummy in the world. I don't know.
You know, there should be like a bloopers reel of like all the voice actors, but they're acting, and they do like one where they're all hungry. Because it'd be so awesome. You hear that noise anyway with anime when the characters are hungry. So it'd be cool if you just had like a natural one where all the voice actors, it's like right before lunch and they're all hungry.
Yeah, that'd be funny. I wish we could do blooper reels more often. I feel like anime dubs used to have blooper reels more in like the bonus features and stuff like that on DVDs, but I guess for there's got to be some reason they stopped doing that after a while. I hear that like it's like a matter of just like getting it approved by licensors in Japan and all that different stuff. And over in Japan, I think that they have like a different idea about bloopers and stuff like that versus America. Like America, we love like getting that like kind of peek behind the veneer and like seeing people just kind of goof up every now and then. But yeah,
I think was it Full Metal? It was on one of the DVDs, I think. They did like a behind the scenes, and they had like some bonus clips, and they'd show you how like they would move they would edit the mouth flaps, and they'd do like, it was almost like Dragon Ball Z abridged, right?
Oh, really?
Abridged, and I remember seeing it somewhere. I don't know if it might have been on DVD, it might not have been, but it was like this cool like behind the scenes where they'd show you how they could like edit the mouth flaps to make it look like the characters were saying something different, kind of like what Dragon Ball Z Abridged did.
I got you. I don't know if that ever happened. At least I don't remember that happening with Full Metal Alchemist in particular myself. But I don't remember for sure. That would have been a long time ago. What's up?
Do you remember Ghost in the Shell? They like the real old DVDs they used to have behind the scenes like the art, the Japanese creator and like the production company. Do you remember that?
So I have Ghost in the Shell on Blu-ray, but I've only watched the movie. I haven't watched any like behind the scenes or anything like that yet. But that'd be really neat. I feel like when I was younger, I didn't care as much about watching behind the scenes stuff and like seeing how the animation worked. But now that I'm older and like I can appreciate and understand like all the work that goes into it, I'm like, man, if I can find any like behind the scenes stuff of anything that I enjoy, like I try and check it out just because I like to see how things are made. Like with there was the recent Guillermo del Toro. I keep butchering his name every time I say it because that name is hard for me to say. He did a Pinocchio at the end of last year, and alongside that they released like a behind the scenes on how they made the puppets and everything because it was a stop motion animation. And it's really cool, and I love just like that behind the scenes stuff. It's really cool.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've only seen, like you said, I have not seen that many behind the scenes either.
Mm-hmm.
Only like on one, and I've bought there's a bunch of Blu-rays and DVDs over here. There's a little bookshelf I've ever done, but I've not seen that many more recent Blu-rays. So
I wish that we could do more of stuff like that, because I remember there was some of the behind the scenes stuff that I did see later on whenever I was already interested in voice acting. I remember watching, we had the old Death Note single DVDs, and every few DVDs they would have the special feature with like the behind the scenes of the recording process and them like recording the dub for Death Note and everything like that. And I really wish that more studios would do that more often, because that kind of stuff really encouraged me. I was like, oh yeah, this looks really cool and fun, and I was like, I'm gonna do that someday. And we kind of sort of have that with some of the old cast reveals that Sentai used to do. They used to do like cast reveals where it was showing us in the booth doing the dub and everything like that. And we did like a Watch Me Dub type series as well. I did a couple of those, and I really wish we would do more of those. That would be really cool.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, what else can I ask you? Okay, so you mentioned Food Wars, right? Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Is there a favorite food, or like a favorite? Is there like something favorite in that show? Like whether favorite food from that show, or just a favorite food that you have in general?
A favorite food my favorite food in general is like chicken fettuccine alfredo. And yeah, because I just love fettuccine alfredo. From the show in particular, I've always kind of been ashamed at the fact that I'm a little bit of a picky eater. I've been trying to get better about that over the years. So while the food on the show always looked really good, when I would hear the ingredients, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I would actually like that or something like that. But I've started cooking a lot more with my wife over the past few months. Because we've been trying to get better about not ordering delivery as much, and I feel like it's opened me up to trying more things. So I definitely like to try a few dishes from the show and figure out which ones I might like more. Ones that I thought looked really good though was and I might try and make eventually is the first, I think it's the first dish that Soma makes for Erina, where it's like the gelatinous chicken broth with the egg on the rice and the chicken, and like that looks really good, and it looks close enough to stuff that I already like that might be a good like starter dish to attempt.
That sounds cool. That's funny because you talk about cooking. I'm trying to get into cooking more instead of ordering out as well.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get into soup. Right? I'm trying to do soup first. Try to get I'm great at smoothies. I can make you the nastiest or the coolest smoothie ever, right?
Nastiest? I don't know if I want a nasty one. No, I'm just joking.
But so that's what I'm trying to do, and so but yeah, I know where you're coming from. You know, is getting into cooking and stuff like that. That's cool. That first dish though, that first dish, those are my favorite parts. I feel the need to do this, but are you familiar with Ed, Edd n Eddy?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so this is a thing from Ed, Edd n Eddy. Oh, I smell cookies!
Yeah!
Yeah,
I love Ed, Edd n Eddy.
So anyway, but it reminds me. Speaking of Food Wars, did you, and as a voice actor, you may or may not kind of go along with this, but did you, what did you think of Food Wars, like the style, the way it was? Because a lot of people say different stuff about it, right? I've heard different, like I love it, I think it's awesome, but like people say ups and downs. People think it's dirty. What was your opinion?
I mean, it's got elements of like ecchi. I think I feel like as a lot of more like niche anime fans have seen, there's shows out there that are definitely a lot more like edgier and sort of lewder for sure. But I think because of the type of show that it is, people tend to like, it sticks out to some people more than others. For me, I feel like it's anime as usual. It's people's clothes bursting and it's the absurdism of it that's really funny and appealing. I can definitely see why people might be more of like, that's not for me, because I grew up around a lot more like conservative people where something like that might stick out to them a little bit more. But
you are like a classic fan. You're like, I'm so hungry, I just wanna.
Yeah. But what I think I remember hearing about the manga creator, at least, I think that he used to do, and this is all just like stuff that I think I've heard from around different places. So I don't know how much of this is confirmed as like actually true, but supposedly the artist of the manga used to do hentai, but then like he wanted to break out into a more traditional like mainstream manga scene, and I think part of the only reason he was able to sell that series as a manga to the publisher was like, well, it's gonna be about food and food battles and stuff like that, but it's gonna and the foodgasm thing or the clothes exploding, it was supposed to be more of like a gimmick to try and like help sell the thing, and you'd I feel like to some extent that did end up helping it like burst into the mainstream, because it was just like so like, look at this is ridiculous. But as the show goes on and as the manga goes on, I feel like a lot of those scenes got relatively milder, or at least not happening quite as frequently as earlier on, because then the manga creator was able to just sort of like go where he wanted to with the stuff, and it became more of like your typical shonen battle anime, but like for food, and they still kept that element of it, that the food's exploding powers, if you will, but it felt more like just sort of a side gag as opposed to like the main like gimmick of the show.
It does make it awesome though, because like, when you look at like, if you look at other action shows, you're like, okay, the action it draws people in, right? But with cooking, you're like, how can you make cooking interesting enough to hold your attention? Well, the fast chopping, the bursting of the clothes, and the
bursting. Oh yeah, and then just drawing the food just so beautifully. Anime food always looks amazing, especially in like Miyazaki films and stuff like that. But I feel like Food Wars has come really close to being Miyazaki level. Just like, ooh man, I really want to like try that.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So also, let's see. So also, the other thing I wanted to ask you was, do you have any like favorite? Do you have any like favorite lines, or like any like favorite? Do you have a favorite character or a favorite line that you've done, or even that's maybe that you haven't done, or like any favorites? You know.
My favorite line I've never said is. No, I'm just joking. I forgot what I was gonna say. So I do have like a couple of favorite characters. For one, it's a pretty much a tie between Bell from DanMachi and Hinata from Haikyuu. Hinata is one of my favorites because he's just so much fun to play in the booth. And every time I get to come back to him, he's just such a big ball of energy, and I get to go just like crazy and be an annoying teenage little boy again, and it's so much fun. And then Bell, I just have like this huge sweet spot for, because he was my first lead role that I got to play, but also the fact that I feel like he grows with me as I come back to him. Like we've just finished season 4, part 1, for the dub and everything like that, and I feel like every time I come back to him, he is in a place that's like similar to me in my life. Because like when the first season was coming out, it was my first lead. I was still kind of new, whereas he was also kind of new to adventuring, and he was still like trying to get better and be stronger and a little bit less secure and sure of himself, which was a lot like how I was when I first started. Which everybody's like that when they first start at anything, that unless they just have like this really big complex about themselves. But most people tend to be a little bit more nervous and less self-assured. And then by the time season 2 rolls around, he's still got a little bit of like, man, I want to get better, but he's got more of like a confidence to himself. He knows a little bit more about what he can do and what his abilities are, and that's kind of how I felt during season 2. And season 3 rolled around, same kind of story there. He grows as a character, and I feel like his growth has like personally paralleled mine. Every time I come back to him, it feels like I'm coming back to him at like the exact point that I need to in my life, and it's just been great to come back to him.
It's also very inspiring. I'm surprised like you haven't you probably have gotten inspired in the booth while playing Bell Cornell.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, he's such a great character, and I love that show so much. It's again, like I said, it's one of my favorites that I've been able to work on, and I'm so happy that I was able to get to be a part of it, especially so early on in my career, because I think I booked him maybe like a year and a half into my like working in anime in general. Wow. And sometimes it can take even longer than that for a lot of people to book a role like that. And so I'm very grateful that I was able to even work on a show as big as that and a character leading that show. But yeah, it's one of my favorites, and I'm so happy that I'm a part of it.
Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, and before we end this, did you want to tell everybody just a little bit about where they can find you, how they can kind of get into voice acting, and just kind of
general.
Just kind of go for it. Yeah.
Sure. Well, if you want to get into voice acting, I mentioned it already, but I highly recommend the Voice Acting Club. It's a Discord server and community run by Kira Buckland, who is known as playing Jolene Cujo in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stone Ocean, 2B in Nier Automata, and a bunch of other stuff. And a couple of my other peers also help administrate that forum. It's the new form of forum. Yeah, so if you're interested in voice acting, I highly recommend going there to get experience and get feedback from other members of the community. And then in terms of where you can follow me, Bryson Baugus, I am at Baugus Bryson, last name, first name, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, those three. And I'm also Baugus Bryson on Twitch. Twitter is where I tend to gravitate towards the most. So if you ever want to like find out what's going on with me, that's typically where I update things. And Twitch, I am planning on streaming every Wednesday from like 5:30 to 8 p.m. Central, give or take some time, depending on how late I'm able to start or late I'm able to go. Yeah, that's the plan, is to start streaming every Wednesday. And
Cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Bryce, and make sure if you got whoever's watching, if you guys are a fan of Bryce or if you've seen him in anime, go check him out. Go follow him on all his social media. And if you're watching this, or if you guys have any other questions or anything else, please do feel free to reach out to Bryce himself, or if you want to leave a comment on this video or anything else we do. Yeah, thank you, Bryce, and we'll see you guys next time. Bryce, you're welcome back anytime. Tell the voice acting community about us, and let Lucy know she's welcome too.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, see ya. Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you.
Mhm.